I'll let him do most of the introducing, but everyone say hi to Elliott. He's an artist, designer, developer, community organizer, and I'm super excited about what we're about to learn. So thanks for being here, Elliott.
Yeah, thanks, Molly, for having me, and thanks to everybody joining me. And I think I was thinking about the format of this talk, and I'm going to kind of structure it a little bit like a walk through some of my projects. I usually make digital work, like websites, but I'll also show a few physical works that I've been working on. So, yeah. So the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I'll usually go outside and I'll take a short walk. And I learned recently that getting outside and having sunlight in your eyes in the first hour of waking is really great for sleep and mental health. So I'd like to take you on my morning walk, and we might walk a little further if we have time. So here's my front door. And so let's walk down the steps. So I live near the park, and I usually walk up towards the park. And so that's a right from my on my street, and then we can walk up. I really like these large shadows from the trees in my street. And here we are at the entrance to the park. So in structuring this talk, I thought maybe a good place to start would be talking about how I grew up or where I grew up, and more specifically, like the structure I grew up in. So this is the floor plan of the house I grew up in. And I was born on Maui in the Hawaiian Islands archipelago. My parents built a house on Maui in 1984. And what I love about this house is that they were involved in almost every aspect of the design and building process. The house itself was just one big rectangle in the beginning. And over time, they've added rooms inside of this rectangle. They have this one family photo album that's just devoted to them building the house, which I think is like a really beautiful collaboration, or a document of a collaboration that they have together. And this is a photo of the framing going up. And I'd like to draw your attention to the text that my dad wrote at the bottom of this photograph that says the skeleton. And the framing of a house is sometimes called a skeleton. And so here's another skeleton. This is the HTML skeleton. And so if you're familiar with building websites and making websites, which seems like you all are, you'll recognize this as the HTML skeleton. And on W3 Schools, a common resource for learning HTML, they use this quote from the encyclopedia, which says, a skeleton is the supporting framework of an organism. And I really love this quote because it makes HTML very bodily. So I've been curious recently why I ended up making websites. When I was a kid, I got into websites because my dad had all these computers strewn around our house. And only now am I thinking about the reasons that I actually enjoy the process of building websites and kind of seeing the connections between web design and other interests I've had in my life. I think the reason I love making websites is the same reason that I was into architecture as a child. I would draw these elaborate floor plans of like imaginary living spaces, and creating these diagrams was sort of a form of playing for me, and I would navigate them with my mind like a video game. And so I think in many ways, building websites is all about building environments. So these are two spaces that I organized art exhibitions in while living in California. On the left is a space called Nitro Trail, which was an old dynamite storage facility in Pinole, Richmond. And then on the left, on the left was the Nitro Trail. And then on the right is a space called VI Dancer, which was the sunroom of the apartment I lived in with a few friends. And I started organizing shows in the sunroom part of the house. So I decided to create an index of these project space websites. I named this index Gossips Web, and I'm not sure how I came up with this name, but I like how it speaks to how I found these spaces. I'd often come across a project spaces website and follow an artist back to their website and see what other project spaces they had shown at. I felt like this was sort of a hypertext gossip, if there is such a thing. I made the name possessive because I liked imagining gossips as this character that was sort of like weaving together this directory behind the scenes. And I also liked how the name sounded like the children's book, Charlotte's Web. And so the directory took its form. This is the directory. It took its form as just like an HTML table with columns and rows for website, city, and other metadata. And when a domain name in the directory eventually expired, I'd strike through the entry, but I would keep it in the directory. So these are some strike throughs. And I thought it would be interesting to just see like these strike throughs sort of grow, and more of them appear over time as people moved on to other projects in their life. And so this was the next iteration of Gossips Web, which I did more recently. And so I started realizing that these spaces that I was indexing in this version, I was kind of less interested in these art spaces, and I was more interested in just these websites being, a lot of them were like handmade websites, because artists tend to enjoy doing things by hand. And I think I was most interested in that aspect of these websites. So this next iteration of Gossips Web focused on the handmade web. And so this is the homepage of Gossips Web now. It shows the most recent websites that have been submitted to the directory. It costs $1 to submit to it, and that just goes into like maintaining the directory. And here are all the websites that are part of the directory. I'll open it up in a new tab so we can explore some of these. So some of these websites were made by artists, others are just people that are interested in making handmade websites. Some are blogs, but I have I have criteria. So if you go to the submit button, there are some like examples of what you can submit and what I don't really accept. Yeah, like websites that are sort of like resumes or business cards, or websites that depend heavily on JavaScript frameworks. I like to keep the directory full of websites that like in a few years down the road, they'll still work, even if that framework is no longer maintained. And yeah, like personal websites that are full of links and rabbit holes and Easter eggs. Like, and I think having this criteria is just about making the directory interesting to explore for people visiting. Yeah, so let's explore a few more. And I also have this random button up here that will just pick a random website and yeah, it goes to it. So Gossip's Web recently got some attention on a popular website called Hack Your News. And while this wasn't really the audience that I was imagining for the site, some of the feedback I got was pretty interesting. And one of the main discussions that kind of ensued was about the definition of a handmade website. I like these because it kind of comments, or it's like a comment on, well, I think what's obvious about some of these comments is that handmade is somewhat subjective, yet all these websites yeah, are handmade in one way or another, and it almost comes down to like the tools behind it, and so also handmade websites can be kind of seen, like as mentioned in this comment, they can be kind of seen as like both ugly and beautiful at the same time. And I really love that because it kind of is something that people often say about art. So in the summer of 2019, I wrote this essay called Exploring the Vastness of a Website. And I'd like to read you part of that essay. In the last few years, websites and social media platforms have introduced explore pages into their interfaces. Usually these are just feeds masquerading as explore pages. Other times they're simply static, curated staff pick lists or personalized recommendation pages. To me, these pages don't live up to the name Explore. A feed is based around time, usually reverse chronologically sorted, whereas an Explore page reveals the expansiveness of a website by pulling from disparate sources indifferent to time, allowing one to jump into the depths of something entirely new. Even personalized recommendation pages like Instagram's Explore tab aren't really Explore pages either, because they're limited to a user's interests and similarities to other users on the platform. Being fed similar content based on your likes isn't the same as exploring the vastness of a platform. Explore pages are unique in that they unearth things that are not necessarily the most important or the most recent. When Explore pages are built this way, it allows users to approach a platform with an open mind and with less expectations. explore pages should make you feel a sense of excitement, similar to the feeling of exploring a new place. This is one of the websites that I referenced in the essay. It's a music sharing website from 2008 by Justin Ouellette. And this is the homepage to the left, showing a random assortment of mixtapes across the web or across the website. So this was kind of like the original like mixtape on the website. And so this is a random assortment of mixtapes. And this was like kind of an amazingly rich way of exploring all the different mixtapes across the website without any algorithm or search. And Mixtape was eventually shut down, but what I found, I just find this like design incredibly inspiring. And you'll see it kind of work into some of my more recent projects. So in 2019, I decided I wanted to make my own community website. And so I made this tweet about it. And interestingly, like this public announcement that I was going to do this made it really hard not to follow through on this goal. And there's also like a thread that accompanies this tweet where I like updated my progress with building this community website. And like before it even launched, I was like adding screenshots of it like in progress. And then finally when it launched, like I asked people to join me there. And these are some people like, I guess, followers from Twitter that joined, and also some friends. And so each color is a different profile on the site. And so I called this community website Special Fish. And here it is today. So it's grown a little bit. And yeah, I like the name Special Fish because the website kind of looks like maybe like scales on a fish, like all these colors. And I usually describe Special Fish as like a directory of people or a directory of profiles. And it revolves around these user profiles that are text only. And I've also heard it described as kind of like a text edit, like a social media version of text edit, which I found funny. Like, yeah, text edit, as you all know, is like a word processing software for the Mac. And yeah, like what would a social media version of that look like? And so, yeah, so every profile is composed of a log, which has kind of turned into a blog. And at first these were just like bios, but I didn't like put a character limit on it. So people really turned these into like micro blogs, and they started timestamping them. And then let's see if this one has it. I can go to my own profile. So there's these logs, and then there's also lists. And yeah, a list is just what it sounds like, a list of different links or interests or yeah, so yeah, we can explore a few more of these. This today section is like everybody that's updated their profile today. This might be a good way of seeing like more active profiles on here. And I found this really interesting. Like this format was created by the users, just a way of timestamping their entries within this text area. And so one of the users and also a friend John Romero, who goes by Fanfare. He also creates art and makes websites. He made this music player for special fish. It's kind of this Easter egg. We used to have these filters, but you'd press the filters in a certain way, and then the homepage would turn into this music player. I was working at a gallery, running my own art spaces on the side and photographing art as well. I was looking at a lot of art daily and began to just see all this physical labor distilled down into these 8 megapixel JPEGs. It was sort of depressing, but also magical. These images were literally paying my rent, yet they sat weightless on these thumb drives or gallery servers. I wanted to see if there was some way that I could make these images reveal that side of themselves that I found magical or mysterious. So the newest version of CSS, or cascading style sheets, introduced a property called filter. And this allowed designers to add effects to HTML elements. And one of those effects was a blur. This could be applied to HTML elements, including an image tag. And so I started experimenting with, so one of the places that a lot of these images, these art documentation images that I was making for clients ended up was this website or this blog called Contemporary Art Daily. And yeah, so this is the homepage blurred out. I made this website called Contemporary Art Blur. And yeah, basically it was just a blurred out version using an iframe. So the reason I did this was I wanted to let people access this more mysterious part of these images. And I guess you could interpret this as like maybe me making art out of these images. But I think I thought about it less like that and more just like I wanted people to access this mysterious part of these images. And I also found it interesting how like blurring out this website, like these blurs themselves felt like oddly emotional. And these were just like colors and vague shapes moving around in space, and they kind of felt like this sort of energy. So over the next few years, I became increasingly like obsessed with blurry images. And I started thinking about them less as images and just like this energy. And so I realized I needed to make like tools for people to maybe access this. so I began making blurry tools. So designer Laurel Schwolst was the creative director at the Creative Independent, and she wrote to me and asked me if I wanted to make a blurry version of the Creative Independent. The Creative Independent is a publication by Kickstarter, and yeah, the design of it has this kind of these blocks that sort of build up over time. And so this is actually the homepage, which is it's just green right now, but this is the blurry version. And yeah, you can just like browse the website, but this blurred out version. So after this this small project, and this was also actually how so like soon after this, I began working at the Creative Independent, which I think is just interesting how this project, like how little projects will like, yeah, like lead into like work like that. And so after this project, I wanted to create a way that you could blur out any website, not just like Contemporary Art Daily or the Creative Independent. And so I made this website called blur.website. It's no longer available, but this Arena channel archives some of those blurs from the past. And yeah, I titled this Arena channel, I Left This Block in the Rain. I was kind of thinking about leaving a book in the rain and like what that does to the pages or the images on those pages. So after Blurred Out website, I began thinking of other images that could become more mysterious through the simple act of blurring them. And I realized that iPhones are full of images, and most of them are really never seen by others. And I've always found like the camera roll on iPhones, like that grid of images, that really is quite beautiful to me. And like, so I kind of daydreamed about like an alternate reality where every photo in that camera roll was a blurry one. And I started thinking about like how that might affect memory and like, yeah, would it be hard to decipher one day from the next or 1 month from the next? And so I decided I wanted to make like a blurry camera app. And there's also no way in like on the iPhone in the camera app to actually like intentionally blur a photograph. So this is like the first prototype of the blurry camera app. And I built this app with the programming help of Jeffrey Allen Scudder, who's an artist and programmer. And so I realized I had to choose the amount of blur that I would add to these images. And so it felt appropriate to just call this this amount of blur like Elliott's blur, like coining it in a way. And so I named the app Elliott's Blur. And this is like the first image that we produced of Jeffrey making the app. And then these are some of the first images. And so seeing my camera roll fill up with these blurry images was interesting, but I wanted to see these blurry images extend beyond my phone. And Instagram felt like a good place that I could share these blurry images. So I began filling my feed with blurry images, and surprisingly, people wanted to take blurry images as well. So I released Elliott's Blur on the App Store. And so here is it in use. So after building Elliott's Blur, I started thinking about other things that images could embody. And most images that are posted on Instagram, unless they're a meme or an advertisement, don't usually contain text. And I started dreaming about creating a piece of software where I could create my own sort of like advertisements or images with text embedded in them. And one thing that's beautiful about text embedded in an image is it's slightly more archival. There's no separation between content and presentation, and there's no dependencies such as fonts. And I wanted to create images that could break free from Instagram's in-app restrictions. In deciding on the look and feel of these text-based images, I started thinking about how basic HTML pages look. And before images were introduced on the web, yeah, like websites just used Times New Roman, or sorry, before images were introduced on the web, websites were just documents. Many early websites used the font Times New Roman because it came pre-installed on almost every computer. Times continues to be the default font on browsers today. The contrast between Times and trendy operating system design becomes more and more apparent as the web grows older. Instagram and other apps try to design a seamless experience for the user. The one area that users have visual ownership over is their images. So I wanted to see how I could reveal this through the images I was posting. I wanted to remind people that Instagram and other apps in general are they're still running on the World Wide Web, just a very privatized and controlled version. So I called this this image word processor TNR writer, or Times New Roman writer. And so here are some of the posts that I made. So in this one, I misspelled post, and I found that kind of funny. So like if I was to replace post with pots in the future. And this, I'm just posting years in the future. And you might still be able to do it, but like you could call, like on a landline, you could call time. And I used to do this as a kid, and it would give you the time, and it would say it as at the tone, the time will be 12:30, and then it would you'd hear a tone at 12:30. And so yeah, I made this post, and then when it was 12:30, I posted this. And in this series, I just posted like my friends' names. And in these, I was like riding the subway. And so every time I would get to a stop, I would post the stop I was at, which is a little hard to time because you have to like get data or get on Wi-Fi between the stops. And then I was thinking, well, maybe I'll just like post the roads that I grew up on. And then I posted my password. And I changed it after, but this is the interface for Times New Roman writer. And so you could make the text smaller and bigger, just in incremental values, and then color would change the background. And then you could save it out as a square image. And then I started experimenting with like printing these out and sort of creating these like packets of just words. So this is Sasaki Garden in Washington Square Village. It was designed by Hideo Sasaki in 1959. A friend who was curating roaming exhibitions in New York asked me to choose a space for the upcoming show, or an upcoming show, and I suggested that we use this garden. While most of my work is digital, I do enjoy making physical work sometimes, and so Sasaki Garden is built above a parking garage, and it's been threatened by several NYU development projects in recent years. The garden is amazingly quiet given its location, and I was particularly interested in the 28 globe lights that are installed throughout the garden. The lamps are slightly controversial when the garden was first built, but since then they've kind of become this iconic part of the garden. And I liked how they highlighted, I liked how these lamps sort of highlighted the underlying grid that the garden was designed on. I also found it interesting that from any place in the garden, you could sort of see another one of these lamps. And it felt like these lamps were sort of communicating with one another in a way. So here's one of the lamps, like seen through some foliage or trees. And so I decided to take portrait photos of each of these lamps, and from like various perspectives and distances in the garden. And then there's this copy center that's pretty close to the garden called Unique Copy Center. And this is the image box, I guess, that I printed the photos like straight off the camera on. And I just printed them like on 4x3 like glossy stock. And yeah, here's like a contact sheet of all the lamps. Here's some more. There's like a shadow of one of the lamps. So after I photographed these lamps in the garden, I went home and I started playing around with like sketching the lamps. They're kind of this weird shape because they're like almost like awkwardly tall. And I can see why people almost didn't like them at first when they were installed. I kind of find them beautiful, and then they have this little base to them, and then they're just like this white globe. So this is a photograph that I took in the garden that day of like a moth that landed on one of the lamp posts. And so this is just like a slow zoom in of the moth. And so I started also thinking about like what sort of design work or like graphic design that I could do for this garden. And one of the things that like in, intro to graphic design classes, they'll have you like make a business card. So I thought it might be interesting to like make a business card for this garden and make it just really simple with like the address, so you can find it, and the name of the garden, and then like maybe while you're there, you can look at the lamps. And yeah, this is the front, that's the back. And then, yeah, kind of circling back to the TNR Writer project, I used that app to like announce the show on Instagram. So this is the invite. And then on the day of the show, it like rained. So I displayed them under an umbrella. And yeah, this is how I displayed them, just like in the packet that were given to me from the store, from the photo store. Walking up to the park right now. It's evening. I've been thinking about this term, everyday websites, for a while now. I'd like to define what I mean by everyday websites. Most websites that we encounter today are commercial. In some form or another, they're commodities. A small number of websites on the World Wide Web are handmade. What I mean by handmade is that there's a direct feeling of a human's presence in the look and feel of the website. Usually these are also written by hand using HTML or CSS and not using frameworks, generators, or templates. Everyday websites are a little different from handmade websites. Handmade sites are defined by how they were built and their aesthetic qualities, while everyday sites are more defined by their content. Everyday sites are less about dreams, ambitions, projects, or reflections, and more about mundane aspects of everyday living. Another way of putting this is everyday sites are less about ideas and concepts and more about living daily life. Maybe another term to describe this is living sites. If an extraterrestrial looked at the internet, what would they see? They might learn about our dreams, ambitions, and fears, but they would miss more fundamental aspects of how we live day-to-day life. Our day-to-day lives accumulate to make us who we are. I'd love to see more websites documenting this aspect of ourselves. So I made this website this year, and it's called Quiet Coffee. And I just create a new HTML page every day, and I just write a list of the things I did that day. I think actually the project might be over. I did it for 3 months straight, and it's kind of intense to do every day and find time to do. But I don't know, I might just be on break as well. But yeah, here's some of the lists. Everyday websites are kind of like skeletons in a way. We build them up daily and they turn into this rich memory bank over time. The actual skeleton of the house I grew up in probably only took a few days to put up, yet the house has been there for 37 years. My parents started this building, just building this big rectangle, and have made incremental changes daily over the years. So I thought it'd be nice if maybe we could create an everyday website together. And so I made this website called The Big Rectangle, which I'll drop into the chat. And yeah, so basically this website is all about like connecting the rooms that we're in. So I was trying to think of everyday things that we could index, and it made me think about this Zoom call as a sort of index of our lives in this very moment. And once you leave this this call, this index will sort of dissolve, and it may not happen all at once. People might leave at different times, so it might dissolve like sand running through your hands. And so I thought we could focus on the architecture of our rooms, and yeah, more specifically like the room that you're sitting in, and we could try to like connect them all through this big rectangle website. And yeah, you can participate in any language that you would like to. And yeah, I'll just let you guys write your entries for a little while. And basically, yeah, you can just describe the room that you're sitting in and then click submit and it will go into this index. So I dropped the link. It's bigrectangle.elliott.computer, but I dropped it into the chat. And maybe I'll play some music while we do this. Oh, maybe I have to play it in the song. Can anyone hear the music playing?
I can hear it.
Yes.
Thanks. Cool. Well, thank you for contributing to the big rectangle. Let me go to the index. We can all see.
I wonder if we can pick out who's who.
I had some guesses.
What were they?
I guess the one with 2 dogs was Nathan.
Kind of easy though.
Yeah. I really appreciated the kind of inventory style numbers. 5 screens, 2 dogs, 1 rug, 2 lamps, 3 doors, 1 desk, 4 windows.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's micro indexes happening within each.
Did anyone use smell as a way to describe their room?
Yeah, there is a dog smell.
That was my dog smell. It
When you
wasn't
lit,
super evocative. It was just weird smell. I didn't like do a like candle review or anything.
when you lit
Yeah, I forgot I was supposed
Elliot, I lit incense too. So now that's what it smells like.
Oh, wow. That's really nice.
I forgot I was supposed to give you a time warning. We have like 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes.
Oh,
I didn't know if there was more like
There's just like one more, but like we can also go to questions now. Yeah.
yeah, I'm also down to like guess people's room descriptions too, like whatever works.
Cool. Yeah, maybe I'll just talk about this really quickly and then we can
Sure.
go to questions. So yeah, this is, so in the early 2000s, many personal websites had guest books. These were places that visitors could leave notes and say they visited your website. And with social media, these guest books have kind of slowly died out. But so, some of them, there's still like guest book platforms, but they kind of feel outdated. So my most recent project, I've started imagining like what it would be like to create like a new sort of guest book platform. And sometimes people describe their like personal websites as gardens. And I really like that metaphor. And I think it could also be applied to like guest books in a way. Like in your own private garden that anyone can visit, and like a garden that you can tend and curate. And so, yeah, I'm working on this website called Guest Garden, and this is kind of what it looks like if you embed it on your website. I'll go to, so this is like what Guest Garden looks like your own guest book looks like. And then, yeah, there's a little garden that people can sign and you can go through the messages. And so, yeah, like you can go to this talk at elliott.computer/walk. And yeah, I'd like to invite you if you want to, no pressure, but if you want to sign the guest book, you can. And I'm also like opening this up to, yeah, like people can create guest books. It's still in beta right now. So I'm like asking people to support my projects, and then, yeah, I would give them like a guest book. Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much, Molly, for inviting me, and like Upstatement for hosting this. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Elliot, I was enchanted by your walkthrough of how you think of websites. Fun fact, we worked with the firm that Hideo Sasaki created. So we're connected through Sasaki, which is nice. He was a cool guy.
Cool. Yeah, I did see that, yeah, in your projects. Yeah, that's really cool.
So I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you do for fun, and what do you do for money, and what do you do for art? Like, how do you divide your work in terms of why you make it? And, you know, what is I make money from it, it's a living, versus like I make websites as art?
Yeah, that's a good question. So like, I feel like sometimes it's a fine line for some of the projects I've worked on. Like I worked on this project called Empty Day, which was actually like a client project. It's at emptyday.today. And this was also a collaboration between Laurel Schwolst and myself, who's a designer and developer. And yeah, so that was like one of these projects where like we had a lot of agency, where we could, like the client trusted us a lot, and like wanted us to explore ideas of like getting off social media for a day. And so, yeah, like that was one of those projects where like we were almost doing it for fun, but we were also getting paid, which was awesome. But like, obviously, like not all client work is like that. So yeah, a lot of my projects are just, yeah, like, I guess me working on them and almost, I guess they're like art. But yeah, I've been like trying to, yeah, like get Patreon to be more of a thing to support these like side projects that I've been working on, or these community websites. And that's worked pretty well for like Special Fish, because people like use that as like a microblogging platform. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Totally. No, it's great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, you post a guest book link.
oh yeah, like to the guest garden. Yeah,
Is that like too easy for us?
so that's mine. Yeah, and yeah, if anybody like wants to try it out, I can like give them the sign up URL too. And then the URL to this talk is also in the chat.
Thank you.
I'm curious to ask Elliott. I feel like, I guess first of all, just thank you so much for this talk. It was really inspiring and cool. I feel like there's like an arresting simplicity of particularly some of your mobile app designs. Like when you pulled up like TNR Writer, like the functionality was just presented itself so clearly. And I'm curious how you keep that during your process and like avoid the temptations to add all these things that, you know, seem like a good idea, but kind of, you know, change the work. And, you know, how do you keep your things so simple?
Yeah, I guess I think a lot of my projects like I didn't go to design school, and like yeah, I studied at art school, and I think there's like a bit of like utility in like how I design, and like I think I approach like projects in that mindset of like how to make things like the most useful, and especially with like TNR Writer, like I mean, I don't think this is like necessarily like well designed. I just think like it was like the most practical tool for myself, and I never like released this to the public. It was just like something that I used internally, or for my own practice. So yeah, but I don't think that necessarily maybe changes the way that I design. Like I think, yeah, like design is kind of universal. So like if you're doing it for yourself, for your own practice, or you're doing it for the world, like I try to think about it the same. But yeah, that's a hard question. But yeah, I hope that answered a little bit of it. I don't know.
Thank you so much. And if you ever do release any of those, I think it'd be really, I saw it and I was like, oh, I'd love to play with this. It looks
cool.
like
Yeah,
a
the
joy.
Blur app was like on the App Store for a while, but yeah, those developer fees like are kind of harsh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any final questions? All right. Well, yeah, Elliott, thank you so much